about that horrific day on 9/11 when the towers came down. There were over 500,000 people that ran south because everybody was running, not knowing what was happening. Those that ran south were obviously trapped by the water. This is a brief documentary to get us going, and we'll officially get started here shortly. Ladies and gentlemen, boat lift.
I thought I was watching a movie, Towering Inferno at first. And then I looked real close, and I noticed it was the World Trade Center. I was compelled because I'm a type of person that can't stand by and watch other people suffer. And to me, they were suffering. They wanted to get off the island. And there was no way for them to get off the island other than the water. And I had noticed when I was watching the television, I saw a lot of, the ferries going up into the slips and taking people off. I said, fine, we could do the same thing. I could take people on my boat, get in there, take them where they have to go. And that's what we did.
On the morning of September 11th, when the towers came down, millions of people ran for safety. Hundreds of thousands of them ran south to the water's edge. That's when they realized that Manhattan is indeed an island and that they were trapped.
They were feeling helpless, and that's the worst feeling in the world. What was a person on the ground going to do? Buildings were down. There were people laying under the rubble of the building. Firemen, civilians. My wife was there, and I turned around. I says, I've got to go do something. Just like that. And she looked at me. She says, what are you going to do, you maniac? I says, I'm going to take the amberjack up into the city and help. She says, but what if they're attacked again? I says, well, then that's something I have to live with. I says, I have to do what I have to do. I says, and nobody can stop me right now. Even if I save one person or I rescue one person, that's one person less that will suffer and die.
They were trying to evacuate Manhattan because nobody knew what was going on. You didn't know if something else was going to happen. It was just, a madness on one side and wanting to help people on the other side.
They were just streaming out of the buildings, and the first mode of transportation they saw was a ferry boat. That's when they knew, this is how I'm getting out of here. They didn't even care where the boat was going.
There wasn't panic in New York in the beginning, just volume. It wasn't until the first building fell that there was panic.
You heard the building go down, but we're in the slip, so we can't see it. That's when we started letting go, and then all of a sudden, engulfed. You couldn't see anything.
People were actually jumping into the river and swimming out of Manhattan. Boats were very nearly running them over.
Wait. These people wanted out of Manhattan no matter any way they could.
Somebody wants you to go over there.
Every mode of transportation out of Manhattan was shut down. All the subways were shut. The tunnels were all closed. They closed the bridges. They closed everything immediately.
Boats, usually an afterthought in most New Yorkers' minds, were for the first time in over a century the only way in or out of Lower Manhattan.
The process actually had already started. There were some boats that were grabbing people, that people were lined up at the walls.
On the left.
It's just human nature. You see people in distress on the seawall in Manhattan begging you to pick them up. You have to pick them up.
They didn't know what was going on. They seen the building getting hit with these two planes. As far as they was concerned, we were being bombed. I was wondering if they were going to come on the boat, if they had people with bombs, or if they were going to come on. We're a big orange target in the middle of that harbor. My job is to keep the boat safe, my passengers safe, my crew safe.
Everybody was in shock, running around. They didn't want to leave their families. They had loved ones running around the city.
Everybody has a baby! Nobody has it!
There was one guy ran from the apron and jumped onto the boat. He grabbed onto the metal, climbed up right next to the pilot. So I'm going out there to say something to him. He slides down to the next deck. So the deckhands get him and go, what are you doing? He goes, I'm jumping for my life. So, you couldn't argue with him there.
There was a small boat that was at the lower tip of Manhattan. I thought the boat was going to flip over because so many people were trying to get on. And as I looked behind, they were just 10 deep. And that's kind of what gave us the idea.
We decided that this has to get better organized and we better do it, and that's what we did.
So we decided to make the call on the radio. All available boats. This is the United States Coast Guard aboard the pilot boat in New York. Anyone want to help with the evacuation of Lower Manhattan, report to Governor's Island.
When that call came on the radio, they were coming.
I was uncertain of who was going to respond. About 15, 20 minutes later, there were just boats all across the horizon.
Literally 100 targets converging on the lower part of Manhattan.
When we came out of that dust cloud, tugboats, I'd never seen so many tugboats all at once.
There was just like a fleet of tugboats headed to Manhattan.
If it floated and it could get there, it got there.
All different size, shapes, and forms. And they were zooming across this water.
Ferries, private boats, party boats.
I worked on the water for 28 years. I've never seen that many boats come together at one time that fast. One radio call, and it just came together just that fast.
Hundreds of boats converged on the city, leaving the sun-bathed harbor behind them. Dead ahead, the unknown.
That was something I won't forget. It was just low, dark, acrid, black smoke. It's like there was a big chimney in Manhattan. When we pulled into Pier 11, the dust was unbelievable.
And then out of nowhere, you just kept on seeing people coming.
They looked like zombies coming through the fog, and you knew that those were human beings.
Don't leave us. Please don't leave us here. Take us. At that point, the Coast Guard said, not how many people are you allowed, how many people can you fit?
Come on, guys. Anybody coming? Get your ass over here now. Now. Come on.
Boats started hanging, literally would take a bedsheet off a bunk and then a can of spray paint and paint their destination on.
Some of these people never been in the water, never been on a boat before.
Housewives, workers that do windows. We had executives. And the thing that was the best, everyone helped everyone.
I want you to hold my hand. Come on board. Get inside. One at a time. Get inside.
I saw 4 businessmen lifting up an old woman with a seeing-eye dog, a German Shepherd, and they lifted her up like a surfboard and passed her over the handrails.
When we would carry a load of people over, and there was somebody standing there that seen their husband or wife, that made us feel even better, Well, at least we got 2 back together, Just keep on going,
The guy that works at the ferry, he's a welder. His son was on my boat. He actually came up. He thanked me.
We went back and forth all day long, carrying boatloads, as many as our boat would hold. And it's a lot of people. A lot of people.
You couldn't have planned nothing to happen that fast, that quick.
No training. This was just people doing what they had to do that day.
You forget all about what you're supposed to do, what they teach you in school, and you say, you know what? Morally,
this is the right way to go, and deep down, this is what I'm gonna do.
Average people, they stepped up, and when they needed to, they showed me, you know, when the American people need to come together and pull together, they will do it.
I do feel a way honored that I was a part of it.
It was the greatest thing I ever did with my life.
The greatest day that I've ever seen in all my boating, I mean, my life on the water.
The great boat lift of 9/11 became the largest sea evacuation in history. Larger than the evacuation of Dunkirk in World War II, where 339,000 British and French soldiers were rescued over the course of 9 days. On 9/11, nearly 500,000 civilians were rescued from Manhattan by boat. It took less than 9 hours.
Kind of a pretty touching reminder of what was 13, 14 years ago that we so easily forget. You'll remember right after that, so many people, most of us in this room candidly, had flags on our cars and flags on our homes, and we just over time kind of get complacent, I guess. A lot of people have asked the question, how did today come about? And just very brief, our Hendersonville Fire Department about 2 months ago today, roughly, had a funeral. And within about 8 days, we had 3 funerals. One of those guys was actually more EMT, but for those that know, we kind of keep those buses in our fire department, so they're all one family. The police departments across the country obviously are being unbelievably pulverized. Obviously there's bad apples in certain scenarios. We obviously just finished a 9/11, and collectively, there was a gentleman in 1984 that you'll hear from shortly, and in 1984 put words to paper that, especially since 9/11, most have referred to as possibly our second national anthem, and you'll hear from him shortly. But collectively, those were a lot of the reasons that your Hendersonville Chamber of Commerce, those that will remember that were at the Chamber Luncheon last month, we had Mayor Carl Dean from Nashville. Somebody asked him a question of some of the things he ran on. He said basically he ran on, for those that remember, three things both times. The best education you can have, economic development, and public safety. So, from someone that has had to do with a few things to do with state and federal budgets from behind the scenes, and very involved in county and city budgets, I can promise you these men and women don't do it for the money. There's the old phrase, pay it forward. So the average person in Hendersonville drives by a fire station, police station, or somewhere else in this county about 15 times a day if you live and work here. They certainly would not be opposed to beyond a pat on the back, but some gift certificates for whatever, and just tell them how much you appreciate them. We're back to the agenda. Sorry for all that. But I'm going to explain the agenda for you here, just for the next few steps, believe it or not. You'll see right here we're going to have the presentation of colors from your Hendersonville Fire Department Honor Guard, one of the best. Then we will be joined on stage by some of the most fantastic kids on the planet. And from our presenting sponsor today, Miss Lisa Byers and the Goddard School, we'll have a few that were going to help us with the Pledge of Allegiance. Your Hendersonville HHS Select Choir, Miss Evans' class, will be on stage to perform for you our national anthem. Doug Varnado from Community Church, our invocation. That may seem like a lot, but believe it or not, it's going to take place all in about 9 minutes. From this point forward, a lot of the things that you will see displayed on the screens will be obvious as national recognitions for certain incidents, but as much as we could collect, because a lot of the information is not available, it was not obviously hand-picked, they will be scenes of your community that will bring you a little bit closer to home and that's what we're all about. So, ladies and gentlemen, and one last thing. If you are a first responder, a guest of a first responder of any kind, red, white, and blue, when I say white, I'm speaking obviously of ambulance and emergency services, or military or vet and guest, would you please stand up? Stay standing. For those that are standing, we're honoring you. And for those that are able to keep standing, please do as we present the colors. For the rest of you, I will prompt you when we want you to join them because this is all about the men and women that are standing. Honor guard, the stage is yours. Ladies and gentlemen, from the Goddard School, your Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous
Would you bow with me as we pray? O God of all days and the sovereign creator of every moment that cries out our lives to honor and glorify you, I pray today that we would turn our hearts toward you, that our eyes might follow to see that our hope and our peace come only from you. The overwhelming honor to be in the presence in the midst of those who place themselves in harm's way, whose lives are not of first order, but the protection of those of us who live and work, and admittedly so take for granted those who watch and care, for those women and men in uniform who serve at ready notice to fight, to protect, for those on our streets, for our officers and patrolmen and women, for first responders, for firefighters, for those who we not only pull over the side of the road when they pass, but we pull over the things that so occupy our busy schedule when we see them and pause and say thank you. And so we give them honor this day. Today, oh God, I pray that you would teach us your ways, that we might be open to the same spirit that moved over the face of the waters the first day of creation, and moves also over the chaos of this time to fashion a day, a world, a life, a kingdom, like leaven in bread or like treasure that's buried in fields, that we plow. Teach us your ways, O Lord, you who bring low the kings of the earth and count the nations as dust, that we might never exalt ourselves, but in love to seek you first in your kingdom and the full measure of everything that we need, knowing that it'll be added to us. Teach us your ways, O Lord, that as a people we might love the kindness of the prophets and practice it toward the hungry of the world and the poor and the sick and the oppressed, to prize lives of the born and the unborn, to speak for those with no voice, that we might learn the healing humility which responsibly tends the earth and our nation and our city and all of its people. And finally, teach us your ways, O Lord, that we as a people who seek justice and peace and hope might first learn to humble ourselves and to seek your face, and to turn from any self-constructed way to dependency totally upon you, the creator and sustainer of all things, and guide us through the night of this world with the light of him who is above. Oh God, we are humbled to be in the presence of those who, like the sun, are ready to give. And so this day we honor you in the name of the one who is the light, who was and is to come. Amen.
Thank you, Doug. And how about a big hand? You can be seated. So, how about a big hand for HHS Choir, the Goddard School, Hendersonville Honor Guard, and all those that we honor. We're right on time. And again, thank you for being here. I've got I ask you to bear with me on a few special recognitions, and because it's the people in our community, in our chamber, that make this possible. If you're not a member of the chamber, we've got to talk to you about that, because we're going to start doing this about once a month. I haven't told our staff that yet, but they're excited about it. But we do want to help you. If we're not doing enough to help you, we want to know it. So we want you to give us a call so we can try to help. And we're going to focus on our members. But candidly, if you're not a member, we'll help you too if you're going to help one of our members or neighbors, and we'll make you want to be a member. So welcome. Welcome to Proud to be an American. On behalf of our staff, our board, our members, and most importantly, our community, first responders and military, to Proud to be an American. I want to point out a couple things. Speaking of staff, look, the most fabulous people on the planet I get to work with every day, Amanda, Cassie, Melissa, Allison, and Wendy, and we stand ready to do anything you would have us do if it's going to help Hendersonville, Tennessee, and our surrounding area. I want to talk and briefly mention our sponsors, if I could. Our presenting sponsor today Mrs. Lisa Byers from the Goddard School, one of our best people in the community. We very much appreciate her. Our two major sponsors, Wholesale Inc. These are the guys giving away the car every Friday night at a Sumner County high school football game. We appreciate you. Halo Realty, Danny Hale and his team. It goes without saying what all they've done for this town and continue to do every day. For the sake of time, I want to mention just real brief, and you can see them. I'll ask that you please take the brochure on your table and do look at those. But Total Convenience, Lori Ashley and Floyd, Pinnacle Financial, Star News, Remax Choice Properties, which helps with our Freedom Festival and is there day in and day out and has been for many, many years, along with Volunteer State Bank, Bone McAllister, Huntington Learning Center, The Standard, of course, Hendersonville Medical Center. How was lunch, by the way? Shane's. Give it up for Shane's. I mean, how does it get better than barbecue with the old red, white, and blue? STR, Bill Taylor, Just for Kids Teeth, MCM, Interactive, Dr. Orgain, Rick Orgain, and Inspire Resources. And let me point out a couple of others, if I could put on the stage our delegation. When this idea came up, and everyone knows William Lamberth, actually wherever they are, William Lamberth, Terry Lynn, and Mrs. Rogers, if you all will stand up. And I know Farrell Hill wanted to be here, and he's in committee. But let me tell you a real quick story about these three and Mr. Hale. When William, a past assistant district attorney, obviously, heard about this in the news and called me immediately and said, I don't know what you want me to do, but I got to be involved in this deal, and I want to help as it relates to the first responders and the military. And so he came up with the idea that, and so everybody, all of you military and first responders and your guests that have eaten, at the idea and in conjunction, your state delegation has bought your lunch in appreciation. So thank you all. And for the sake of time, I'd ask you to also just take a note of the special thanks down here for a lot of other people that helped make today happen. Compass and Matt Lawson, Deborah Maggart helped with the table decorations and a lot of things. Obviously, to put something on like this, there's a lot of people involved. There's no way to mention everybody, so I hope you'll look at this front and back and try to understand. There's another thing on your table I want you to go ahead and look at, and I have someone that's about to come out and explain it even more, and I'll talk more about it. You've probably never been to an event, be it the Boy Scouts, FCA, Compass, or whatever, that you hadn't had an opportunity to give more. One of the things the Hendersonville Chamber of Commerce is announcing also today, and we've already worked out with both our fire chief and police chief, is our Rotary clubs and things do a lot all the time where we recognize educators and all that stuff. And some people do first responders, but we're going to start doing it on a regular basis, so at least on a quarterly basis at the urging of the chiefs, and we're going to figure it out. But the Hendersonville Chamber of Commerce will be recognized at least one red, white, and blue every quarter, and we'll have you up for lunch and do a few special things for you. That is kind of another thing that we wanted to add and mention today. I say that before this because we only give away things of those because of our wonderful membership and those that continue to give. If anything touches your heart today or you feel like it, whether it's $2, $20, or whatever, this is one of the typical forms that you would get at any event you would ever go, or you may just want to say you want to get more involved with the Chamber of Commerce. One of our sponsors today, and one of the most fabulous people, is Mrs. Gina Scott with Pinnacle Financial. She is also our foundation president right now, and so anything I might have just mentioned makes a little bit more sense. She's going to take a few minutes and explain that part. So, Ms. Gina Scott.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but I have a few tears still staining my face. This has been a great day. Thank you so much, Paul. As Paul mentioned, I am the board chair of the Chambers Foundation, and my goal today is to share with you a little of the history of the purpose of the foundation. In August of 1985, the foundation was chartered to improve the efficiency, development, and acceleration of both the quality and the quantity of economic growth, employment, and business opportunities. The mission statement of the foundation is to champion the current and emerging needs of Hendersonville by leveraging resources to support our thriving community and business environment. Paul mentioned a moment ago the Freedom Festival, and you know the Freedom Festival is held each year on July 3rd, and also the magazine, The Portrait of Hendersonville. Those are our fundraising activities. And while these activities primarily have supported education, we're hoping to broaden that to the scope to include arts and recreation. Since 2001, the foundation has supported the School Improvement Awards and scholarships to Volunteer State Community College. We supported the building of the Hendersonville Public Library, and more recently, the Leadership Academy through Union University. Thus far, the support has totaled $296,000. While this luncheon is not meant to be a fundraising event for the foundation, Paul has already told you a little bit about something that you're going to see on your table. It would really be not so good of me as a volunteer board chair not to take advantage of this opportunity to ask you to support the foundation. So if you'll complete the form if you want to be more active in the chamber, but also if you would like to support the foundation. I want to thank you guys all for your commitment, your passion for this great city, county, state, and your patriotism for this wonderful country. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And this is a chamber luncheon, so we do have to conduct a little bit of business. I know you understand. Well, a lot of people have come today to hear more about the other side of the patriotism. And this gentleman that I mentioned earlier, back in 1984, put some words to paper that throughout the years, whether when you go through the Gulf War and many other issues that's happened in our country from a tragic standpoint, has meant so much to so many people, and especially many of those that are overseas in conditions that none of us could probably understand. So let me bring to you your special guest and a special person that means to the world. Again, someone that to some would say wrote the second national anthem, especially since 9/11. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Lee Greenwood.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate it, and I'm so grateful to be here. I've been in 4 fighter jets, a shuttle launch, a goat roping, and I've never seen anything like this before. This is terrific. Thank you for putting that in my ears. It's not there. Thank you. I did hear the announcer say that you're going to do this every month. I live in Franklin. That's about an hour drive, so I don't know if I can make it that. But he did say that he wanted me to come back in the wintertime and sing here at the church. So, well, that's not exactly what he said. He said, be a cold day and something when you ever come back. I'm not sure what he meant by that. This is thrilling to be able to do this event, to honor those who are first responders to any type of crisis, and you saw the film and the different types of thing you can respond to. I will tell you that I'm a simple farm boy from Sacramento, California. My father joined the Navy right after the bombing of Pearl Harbor and was in the Navy for 4 years and in the Merchant Marine, which a lot of people don't remember that naval service, and was a ship welder as well as a musician, as my mother was a musician as well. And ladies, in the 40s, women weren't allowed to play in speakeasies and nightclubs. However, she put on a man's suit and wore a hat, and because she was such a good musician, nobody said anything, and that's kind of the way it went. We did have music in our house, but very little, because my parents were divorced when I was a year old. I have an older sister who still lives in California, where I'm from. And she was the piano player in my first band, which was called the Moonbeams. And that's a Google fact. If you'd like to Google that, you can find the Moonbeams. And so we had like a sit-down band that we played with music stands and stuff like that. And it was many years before I actually moved to Nevada and graduated high school and went there to find my career. And I did. I was there for a number of years just working on all that I could do to forward my career and actually make a good living at what I did. But after those 19 or 20 years, then I found even higher place to go with my career, and I moved on to Nashville, Tennessee, and I did several things right. The first of which I joined MCA Records along with Reba McEntire, George Strait, the Oak Ridge Boys, and Barbara Mandrell. And we all had different kinds of careers. However, we all were committed to the same thing, and that's keeping, number one, our label the most popular in Nashville, and moving our own careers to the next level, whatever that would be. We toured 300 days a year. That's an awful lot, and you had to be creative as well. All by bus, started with one bus, and then two, then three, and 2 tractor trailers, and it was a big entourage moving on and touring with every name in country music business that you could recognize. Of course, George Strait, of course, from Texas, was on my label. Reba and I occasionally would do duets together, and we all had chances to perform different kinds of music in different kinds of venues. Had to be creative, as I said, so we wrote a lot of music, and a lot of the music I wrote was in most of the 10 albums that I produced while I was at MCA. Then we moved on to Capitol and Liberty. One of the things I did right in 1992 were 2 things I did right. The first of all was marry my wife, Kim. And so after 23 years, she is still a knockout. And she was not only a Miss Tennessee in 1989, went to the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga in college, the first person in her family to go to college. And then she now is the executive director of the Miss Tennessee USA pageant, which is this Saturday night in Clarksville. So as I packed her up this morning, she headed left, and I went right, 65, and she went 24. And so we said goodbye, and how are your events going to be? And our 17-year-old is still home. We have 2 sons, the youngest of which traveled on our bus for about 3 or 4 years, and I saw the police captain who had his young daughter with them today. And it reminded me of those years that I had Dalton, our older son, which is now 20 at Washington University studying biochemistry, the first person in my family to go to college. And he would ride in the bus with us in a Moses basket at the end of the bus. And then when he started school, of course, Kim had to stay home more. And then we had a second son as we opened our theater in East Tennessee called the Lee Greenwood Theater, which was open 5 years and produced a wonderful show, kind of like a Broadway event. All of the events that took place before the writing of my patriotic anthem, God Bless the USA, had to do with pride of nation for me. And I don't know why it was any more important for me as a farmer to have pride in my country than the guy next to me. But when somebody would sing the national anthem, I would stand up tall and straight while somebody's putting bubble gum on my seat. That's fine. I'll get even with you later. But I just felt this necessity to hold my hand over my heart and to know that there's a lot of people who had sacrificed for my ability to be free. Now, did that have a lot to do with me writing my patriotic anthem, God Bless the USA? Sure. But there were more to it than that. The first line of my song, if tomorrow the things were gone, I'd work for all my life, if you recognize that line, was about my grandparents who raised me since I was about 2 years old. And they lost their farm to grain subsidizing to Russia in the 50s. So I recognize their commitment to their life. And although we didn't have much, we had all we needed. I recognized that later when I had to go and buy fruit at the store, and I could have picked it off the tree or out of the garden for nothing. I learned entrepreneurship because they would allow me to go to the garden and pick sweet pea flowers, bundle fruit together and sell it at the local Chinese market. And I bought socks and stuff like that I needed. So it wasn't necessarily that there was anything bigger or better. It was just the quality of life as you see it. It's all relative, I think. In 1983, I was touring like a crazy person, every doghouse, outhouse, and roundhouse in the United States, and Canada as well. There are 30 USO tours to our credit, and most of them I did at Christmas time. And it was long before I wrote the song, God Bless the USA, that we'd had many like that. I can remember going to Fort Ord, California, out on the Army base at the ocean. And there was a place not too far from there in Barstow where they had the Tank Training Command. And the first time I went there, I was 16 years old with a USO show. And they had 2 buildings and one-lane bowling alley. So some years later, when I got my career, I was in between Los Angeles and Sacramento, and I'm touring with my entourage, all the musicians and technical support that we needed in order to put on a show for 15,000 people. And I called the CEO at the base, and I said, would you like to have a performance? And they said, what do you need? And I said, 2 tractor-trailer beds and enough generators to run our power. And they did, and we put on a show. They brought in the Marines from 29 Palms and the Army from Fort Ord, the Air Force Base from March, who was not too far from the March Air Force Base. And we had about 10,000 troops there. It was just, that's the kind of thing I love to do. And in all our USO tours, I even toured with Bob Hope. Flew the world, 8 days, 25,000 miles, 8 shows. And the interesting part is that I could have met my wife in the Azore Islands, but we didn't stop. And I didn't know her. So we talked about that a little bit later as we went through our romantic period and became dating on a USO tour. So don't tell me the federal government doesn't give you anything. Excited as I was, I still tried to keep my eye focused. My eye focused on what was necessary to do. And every time there came something that was needed of me, I responded, just like those who are here tonight in uniform, today in uniform. And as you know, or probably remember, that after the attack on America in 2001, I was called to New York 4 different times. The first of which was to evaluate the disaster in New York City. And we walked, we were there from the New Jersey police. They brought us in by boat. And we walked through the site and saw the rubble, and you could smell the stench. There were things scribbled on the wall that this is where the morgue is over that way. And at the time, we didn't know the reason they had dump trucks and National Guard there was because there was gold in the hole. And they had to take the gold out first before they could allow anybody really to be down into that area to start the rebuilding process. But Mayor Giuliani was quite forthcoming, and he said, we need you here. I went there with Bette Midler and Mark Anthony, and we both sang at the Firearms Memorial. And I told my wife just before I went on, I said, I think maybe that I should sing something a little more reverent, like maybe Amazing Grace or something. And Mark Anthony sang America, and Bette Midler sang The Wind Beneath My Wings, and I thought they were both appropriate. So we did that. We sang the Policeman's Memorial at Carnegie Hall. We went back again for 2 different trips, one of which my wife tried to build the city of New York with our credit card just to make sure that things got better there. She did really well. But we loved going back to New York and kind of seeing the process. And each year we went back for 5 different years as sponsored by the New York Stock Exchange. And we sang on the street right in front of the NYSD. And there were policemen and snipers on the buildings and everything. And there was a lot of the Jets there and the Giants on stage and several actors and actresses. And so it was Christmas time. So we were singing and just kind of, and just before I finished this one poem that I was talking about, they funneled a lot of children on stage, and each one had a little name tag. And I said, this is really cool having the kids on stage. And one of the firemen leaned over and he said, yeah, each one lost a parent or both in the trade towers. And so you have those moments, it's just like, oh my gosh, just you could hardly get through the emotions of the moment. Well, I tell you what, every time I sing my song, God Bless the USA, it always brings to me a reverent moment. And I've had so many people tell me that it was emotional for them as well. Maybe some instance in their life. And of course, we went through Katrina and 9/11, the Gulf War. And General Schwarzkopf was very forthcoming about my song being the song of the war. It gave us spirit. Like, we really didn't need spirit. We had these fighting men and women that knew how to fire guns and take no prisoners. So I was like, gee, that's cool. What an honor. And then after touring several times with the presidents, and I say presidents because the biggest moment in my life was at the Reagan Library opening, where I got a chance to sing USA in front of 5 different presidents, their wives, and 6 first ladies, which was Reagan, of course, Bush, Carter, Ford, and Nixon, and then Lady Bird Johnson, because her husband wasn't there. Those moments always come to me in a time like this, when I'm about to sing for you my song, God Bless the USA, and I'm going to need some help. So if we could have our first responders please come to the stage now. These moments like this, I always try to make sure that I've told you what it feels like to be the author of something that has really been given to me by God. And that's the reason I put God first in my song. The book Proud to be an American, which you will see when you leave here, and you've seen it on the screen, is a piece of the phrase in the middle. But I put God first because God gave me that gift, and he gave it to America, and it's my responsibility to sing it to the best of my ability at any time I do. So as I sing it, we're going to have some help with, again, the children's choir and also the high school choir as we recognize these wonderful men and women, our first responders, here at Long Hollow. If tomorrow all the things were gone and worked for all my life, and I had to start again with just my children and my wife, thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston, and New York to LA, where there's pride in every American heart. And it's time we stand and say that I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. Today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. Children's choir, the high school choir, our first responders.